Listening Woman. Echoes of the ancestors ride the winds of change, voices of the creatures calling out my name, singing spirits on the breeze, the crashing of waves to shore, the pounding of Earth Mother's heart, teach me what to listen for. In stillness before dusk and dawn, hidden messages are set free, like the chants of my people. Their rhythms speak to me. My ears can hear this music, and my heart can understand. Clan Mother of Teowei, I am yours to command. I listen for your whispers on a course you will chart, searching for the still voice that lives within my heart. Clan Mother of the fifth moon cycle. Listening Woman is the Clan Mother of Teowei, the stillness, whose moon cycle falls in the month of May. The color connected to her moon is black and represents seeking an answer. Her cycle of truth is hearing the truth. This Clan Mother teaches us how to enter the silence and how to listen to the ever-present messages of nature, our hearts, the spirit world, the viewpoints of other humans, the creature teachers, and the great mystery. In Saneka tradition, entering the silence is called Teowei, which is translated as the stillness. Once a person can access the stillness and can hear the small, still voice within, that person has the potential to realize personal wholeness because she has accessed the voice of inner truth. Listening Woman teaches us to listen to all of the viewpoints represented in our world in order to learn the harmony that can be found through allowing each life form to have its sacred point of view. This Clan Mother teaches us that we will never learn or expand if we do not listen to what is being said. She shows us the crooked trail of having to talk all the time. When we are talking, we are not listening. When we ignore or cut off the voice of another person who is telling us something we don't want to hear, we may be stopping our own growth. Many wounded people in our world do not want to hear the truth because they feel that it hurts them. The willingness to listen to the truth about oneself when it is delivered with loving compassion is a great talent and can heal old wounds. Listening Woman has the ability to hear more than the words of her human children, even when they are afraid to speak the truth of how they feel. This Clan Mother listens to others with her heart as well as with her ears. She can hear the unspoken heart's desires of her human children as well as their unspoken fears. She can hear the non-verbal languages of the animals, plants and stones, as well as the voices of the ancestors coming from the spirit world. Listening Woman's talents are derived from her ability to be totally still, to take in all the impressions she can gather, and then to formulate a concept of the whole. Listening Woman teaches us how to discern whether people are speaking the truth by listening to the inflections and feelings contained in their words. She shows us that many humans do not know how to express their personal truths because they can deny their true feelings. Some humans may lie to cover their fears of retribution or punishment. Some people tell lies to feel included or important, but all people who speak untruths are detectable if we develop the art of listening. Showing compassion for those who feel that they must lie is a sign of spiritual maturity. The person who lies is wounded. The untruthful people of the world are only lying to themselves because they have not heard the voice of their orendas or spiritual essences. To live in the total truth is to know the light of the eternal flame of love. Listening woman hears every thought, senses every feeling, and receives every impression in Teowe, the stillness. She uses her gift of prophecy based on the information she collects. The Clan Mother of Teowe can foretell the probable future, showing us our potentials to follow the beauty way or the crooked trail. She sends us warnings when we are off balance and encouragement when we are walking with grace. The Clan Mother of Teowe can foretell the probable future, showing us our potentials to follow the beauty way or the crooked trail. She sends us warnings when we are off balance and encouragement when we are walking with grace. The omens, portents, signs, and guideposts of life come to us because listening woman has heard our hearts, our spoken intent, our unspoken desires, or our needs. The messengers she sends our way are the allies of nature, the ancestor spirit, the creature teachers, and or the voice of our Orendas. Entering the stillness. Listening woman remembered the first human experience she went through when she came from the spirit world to walk the earth. Many, many moons has passed since then, and yet the sweetness of that first moment was alive in her memory, giving her comfort amidst the all-consuming tasks she faced, being an adviser and counselor to her human children. Her senses drank in the smells and sensations of that long ago time, allowing her to float back into the precious memories of her first awakening. Listening woman came into her human form in a giant cavern where the blackness was complete. Even with her open eyes, she was surrounded by total darkness and vast nothingness. She did not know that her human eyes could encompass the beauty of the natural world. She was enveloped in the scent of damp earth, a faint, acrid smell of growing rock formations, and the clean, sweet perfumes of her own body. In the darkness she felt her human flesh for the first time, reveling in the sensations of smooth skin and pliant, well-formed muscles. She touched her head and was surprised at how her hair softly covered her shoulders, falling below her hips like a mantle to protect her from the chill of the cavern. With each movement of her body she felt other textures. Tiny grains of pebble-like sand covered the surface beneath her, gently rubbing her legs. She heard moisture dripping from the ceiling above, giving delight as a drop or two hit her skin, sending new sensations through her body. The soft roundness of her belly and breasts were very different from the strong muscular legs that curled beneath her torso. While she sat on the cavern's floor, her fingertips traced the line of her lips, and she noticed that they were full and soft, the textures of the skin being different from the chin beneath or the cheekbones above. As she fingered the curves of her eyes, she gave a start when she realized that the eyelids were coverings used to protect the sensitive round orbs beneath them. One eye watered, cleansing itself from her unknowing touch, sending a tear coursing down her cheek. She noted the unfamiliar sensation of discomfort and wetness as part of her discovery. She made a mental note that some parts of this human form are very sensitive and would need to be handled with care. As listening woman continued her discovery, by touching her neck, she felt a strong, lean curve of the graceful pedestal that held her head above her body, noticing that there were solid, structural protrusions just beneath the skin in the back. The skeletal forms of her spine that gave her flesh a frame felt angular in comparison to the firm smoothness of the muscles that covered them. Her fingertips moved up the side of her neck, and she felt the shell-like appendages of her ears. In the deep darkness of the cavern, the guardian of inner knowing could hear the slightest movements of her hands, the gentle rasp of her breath, the dripping of water droplets, and the rustle of her legs against the cave's floor. When she shifted her body's position, she drank in every sound as she moved and touched her feet, toes, ankles, and shins, marveling in the magnificence of the human form she had inherited. As Listening Woman stretched her body and found the ways in which she could position her form, she discovered gurgles coming from the organs within her torso. A slight ache in the middle of her belly resounded with a rumble that echoed through the cavern. She was concerned with the new development and silently sent her thoughts to the Earth Mother. "Mother, I do not understand this sound and this ache in the middle. I feel like something is missing, and yet I know that the great mystery created these beautiful human forms in wholeness. What do I need to learn?" The Earth Mother's voice filled the mind and heart of Listening Woman as she answered her daughter. "These sounds are a part of the human body, child. Sometimes these gurgling noises mean that the body is digesting the fuel that is needed to give the body strength. At other times, the rumbles mean that the body needs sustenance to maintain its stamina. You are feeling the ache because there is a hunger for the food your body needs." Listening Woman sat in stillness, feeling the ache deep in her belly, and listening to the accompanying sounds to become familiar with the language of her body's needs. She asked the Earth Mother how she could feed the form that housed her spirit. The Earth Mother spoke to her daughter, explaining that a basket of food had been placed in the cavern very closely to the Cloud Mother, and that by using her senses of touch, Listening Woman could find it and feed herself. The Keeper of Introspection began to grope the space around herself in a circular motion, encountering the basket of food a short distance away. She felt the textures of each of the food substances while the Earth Mother told her how to taste and chew and swallow. The sounds of eating were very different, depending upon the choice of food she made. Some sounds were softer, allowing her to hear the swirls of her tongue over the juicy flesh of the ripe peach. When she bit into a carrot, the loud crunch of her teeth against the firmness of the vegetable echoed in the air and filled the emptiness of the cavern with waves of startling sounds. Listening Woman was amazed by the volume of the noises and paused, afraid to continue or swallow. The gentle laughter of the Earth Mother filled the Cloud Mother's sense of inner knowing, relieving her trepidation. The Earth Mother's joyous assurance that all was as it should be gave the Cloud Mother a desire to crunch louder. The Keeper of Discernment found the feeling inside of herself that told her it was all right to continue. So she crunched down on the bite of a carrot and made the loud echoes again and again, filling the cavern with the sound of enjoyment that came from relishing the sweet taste of the carrot. Listening Woman noticed that her body was no longer groaning, and that the feeling of something being missing was gone. A new feeling of fulfillment had replaced the emptiness, and she noticed the contentment and sense of well-being that flooded her body. She kept the basket near her in case the rumbles started again, because she had no idea how often her new body would need food. She returned her attention to the sound and sensations found in the obsidian blackness of the cavern. The stillness was interpreted by the reverberating sound of liquid dripping from the ceiling of the cavern and hitting a large pool of water behind her. The Earth Mother urged her to find a sense of direction by noting where the sound came from and to follow the splashes until she reached their origin. The Cloud Mother crawled towards the drip and splash noises until she felt the same kind of wetness she had discovered when the tear had rolled down her cheek. The Earth Mother explained that the liquid was water and did not taste salty like the tear from Listening Woman's eye. The sweet water was used to quench thirst, a dryness, and was essential to her human body. Listening woman learned how to cup her hands and take the water to her lips and drink. The accompanying sound were not unlike the gurgles she had heard coming from her hunger. The Clown Mother discovered that she could make different noises when she lapped the water, slurped, or swallowed. The echoes of each sound filled the pregnant void with a myriad of resounding waves of vibration, giving listening women a multitude of new noises to experience. At one point in her process of reaching into the water, the Clown Mother encountered a small stone. She pulled the stone person from the pool and felt the solid form, noticing that it was much harder than the bones in her body, and larger than the pebbles that covered the floor of the cavern. When the stone person spoke to her in the same way that the Earth Mother had spoken to her inner knowing, Listening Woman was so startled that she dropped the stone person into the pool of water with a resounding splash. The stone person continued to speak to her, explaining that he was a friend. Groping in front of her to retrieve the rock, Listening Woman found herself making all sorts of strange noises. Her breath started to come in harder gusts, and she could hear the pounding of her heart as she frantically felt below the water's surface for the friend she had dropped in her moment of surprise. The stone person guided her hand to his resting place and then began to explain how he could aid her in the further discovery of her gifts, talents, and abilities. I am a rock person who holds the libraries of all that is past on the Earth Mother. Together we can approach the outside world, learning what you need to experience in order to fulfill your mission. You have already begun that journey by learning the language of your body's needs, how to hear the Earth Mother's voice, and how to listen to my words. Here in the darkness you are beginning to develop the skills of understanding that make up many levels of sound without sight, taste and touch without visual contact, and feeling without outside confusing influences. These first encounters with your abilities of perception will allow you to hear the truth in every situation you encounter in physical life. The darkness of the void of the unknown will be comforting to you, and the answers you seek will come through your ability to hear them. Listening Woman's breath came in soft, even rhythms as she held her new friend to her heart. The keeper of discernment felt a kinship and a trust between herself and the stone person, who called himself Hachehir, the old man. In his ancient form, Listening Woman found the comfort of a kindred spirit, because her own spiritual essence was as old as the Earth Mother and Grandmother Moon, who were created in the spirit world by the great mystery. Old Man understood the Clan Mother's desire to find out all that she could about her humanness and the things she needed to master on her path to wholeness. That friendship had been the beginning of her journey, the long-ago memory, and how much she had grown with Old Man's assistance created a chain of pictures and sensations that flooded Listening Woman's mind and senses. She recalled her first experience of light and gentle steps that Old Man had insisted that she take when she emerged from the cavern. Old Man had introduced her to Ant, who had taught her the medicine of patience. Ant had spoken of the wisdom of taking the time needed for her eyes to adjust to the light that filtered into the cavern. The brightness of the outside world grew as the Clown Mother and the Old Man spent one sun and sleep closer to the entrance of the cave, allowing Listening Woman to keep her hearing abilities intact while she blended her talent of listening with the new experience of sight. Her excitement at seeing new colors and forms nearly got the best of her in those first sighted moments. The urge to rush into discovery had to be curtailed for her to maintain physical, emotional, and spiritual balance. Now, many moons later, Listening Woman was happy that she had honored the wisdom and harmony that had allowed her to emerge from the cavern into the outside world in a balanced way. Her mind returned to another memory of the progress she had made during the winters. She had learned about the other two-legged humans she would share the world with during her journey on the red road of life. In those early times when she encountered other human beings, Listening Woman was able to develop her gift of inner knowing, because humans had not yet developed speech. The human tribe spoke Helowean, the language of love. This nonverbal language expressed the heart of any matter a two-legged needed to communicate. In silence, the observer had to watch and note the expressions, movements, and feelings being shared by the one who was communicating. To receive the wholeness of any message, the listener had to focus on the person's communication without interjecting or interrupting. Listening Woman had mastered the art of hearing the language of love, and oftentimes heard the thoughts of others through her ability to access the inner knowing as well as her own. The Cloudmother remembered how she had been able to teach others the same talent of understanding the voice of another's heart, and how the human tribe had benefited in those early times. Since then, the Earth Mother had completed many rotations around Grandfather Sun, and the children of Earth had grown and changed, some for the better and some for the worse. The progression of human spiritual evolution was a concern to Listening Woman, because she had witnessed the truth, and she had witnessed the crookedness that some verbal languages had brought forth in those who wanted to hide the misaligned truths of their intentions. Greed and desire for control had given birth to forked tongues and double meanings in the spoken word. Her talents had naturally been honed into precision during the course of her encounters with individuals who spoke with seeming sincerity that masked their hidden agendas. Listening Woman had developed the gift of being a true observer by entering the stillness of her own being and having no preconceptions while she listened to others, observing every movement of their body and every crescendo or cadence of their voice. The Cloudmother could easily see if the speaker was nervous, hiding something, or merely shy. Over the passing of seasons, Listening Woman earned her role of being the keeper of discernment. Every feeling of warning that issued forth from her navel, the feeling center of the body, sent shockwaves through her sense of well-being, and allowed her to discern who to trust and with whom she needed to exercise caution. Many of her lessons had been hard-earned. She had been forced by circumstances to pay attention to actions rather than words. This form of observing took a deep concentration and focus as the Cloudmother developed farther into listening to her heart's impressions of the speaker in front of her. It had been during one of those particularly difficult situations that Listening Woman had been blessed with hearing the voice of her Orenda, her spiritual essence. The bitter cold of the winter sun had made it almost impossible to relax and to tear away the stillness. Listening Woman had nearly decided that the time was not right for her to hear the stories of the two men who had asked for her advice. The winter winds pressed through any tiny opening, and the hides that covered the entrance of the cavern of the tribe she was with, creating an unwelcome waft of cold that sent every muscle into tense knots. The Cloudmother knew that she risked becoming short-tempered with the men, and that she might have a difficult time discerning their shivers with the telltale signs that usually allowed her to perceive hidden meanings or untruths. She knew that in meeting with these two men she would have to stretch her capacity to hear the truth, listening to their inner thoughts and unspoken intentions. During the time that the three spent together, the Cloudmother listened with her whole being, sensing the urgency of the situation as well as the impatience of one of the men. The viewpoints of the men differed greatly, making each certain that the other was incapable of understanding. The guardian of introspection took the time she needed before saying anything, and told the men that they would meet again during the following sun. After the men left the fire, Listening Woman felt confused by all she had heard, the gestures of each man, and the way the bitter cold had robbed part of her focus. As she sat gazing into the flames of her twig fire, she closed her eyes and felt deep inside of her own being. A feeling of warmth rose itself from the stillness and poured through her like golden honey, sweet and rich. The Cloud Mother felt herself expanding beyond the limits of her human form, and then beyond the walls of her cavern, the tribe called home. In the stillness she heard a faint whisper, a voice she did not recognize. The orange flames flickered with light and shadow against her closed eyelids as she followed the whispers into the greyness that bordered her senses. The journey took her into the blackness of the void of the unknown, beyond the boundaries of her perception. The voice grew clearer and more animated the closer she travelled to the sound. A light began to emerge in the darkness of the void, leading listening women to a brilliance she had never encountered before. The light was made of a multicolored burst of flame that changed with the cadence of the voice that spoke from the center of the fire. Listening woman felt a lump rise in her throat and tears stirring in her human eyes as she discovered the voice of her Orenda. She had ventured beyond a human form, yet she could feel every emotion and subtle change in her body. She heard the sound of her own throat trying to swallow, the crackling of the twig fire, the almost imperceptible sob caused by her joyous tears, and the voice of her spiritual essence. In her state of heightened awareness, the Cloud Mother understood all of the steps of her passage, and how each and every lesson had brought her into the moment of personal realized wholeness. The voice of her Orenda was the welcoming voice that signaled that she had come home to the true self. An overwhelming rush of emotions rocked her body with feelings of gratitude, satisfaction, permanence, humility, wonder, nurturance, belonging, achievement, and the desire to know more. She was taken aback by the beauty of the eternal flame of love that held Orenda's voice, dancing in her mind's eye. In her heartbeat she was aware of the Earth Mother's nurturance of her physical form, and the great mystery's loving protection of her spiritual essence. The two worlds of the spirit and of tangible substance had become one inside of her Orenda. She heard the harmony of creation issue forth from the center of her being, singing the music found in all spheres of life. Every life form had a melody, intrinsically harmonizing with all the others. There was no room for discord in the symphony of sounds that flowed through her perceptions. Her heart, body, mind, and spirit had a new sense of wholeness. Nothing seemed too far or too great to encompass, as her ability to hear her voice in creation grew stronger inside her being. The desire to have every human being share in her experience was interpreted by the voice of her Orenda. Self of myself, you are expressing the Creator's desire of unlimited joy. You are blessed with the generosity of spirit that wants all others to find their inner knowing. Until each human being has walked the path to a wholeness that you have walked, they cannot fully understand the ecstasy and bliss of your experience. Every being must be given the opportunity that they need in order to find their individual paths home to the true self. Listen to their hearts and guide them in a way that allow them to know that they may accomplish the task of homecoming for themselves. Listening woman asked the voice of her Orenda if there was some way that she should direct her human children, and the voice of her Orenda replied, "Teach them how to listen to the voice of the natural world. Call upon Hawk, who is the messenger that carries those words of wisdom to assist you in showing the two-leggeds how to listen. Teach them the compassion of Ant, whose medicine is patience, and the wisdom of Armadillo, whose medicine shows them how to keep the feelings and troubles of others out of their sacred spaces by using boundaries. Show the human beings the listening abilities of Rabbit, and how he teaches his medicine of not listening to unrealistic fears. Point out to the medicine of Mockingbird, who teaches two-leggeds the gifts of recalling and repeating all that they have heard. Call upon Ferret to use the medicine of ferreting out the answers by using deduction and reason. Porcupine can assist your children by teaching them the medicine of faith and innocence. They will need to have faith in their paths, their abilities, and their connection to the great mystery, as well as the kind of innocence and humility that keeps the limitations of skepticism and arrogance from daunting their progress. Deep inside the heart, Listening Woman recorded all that the voice of her Orenda had shared with her. The guardian of introspection understood that she had completed her final rite of passage, which reflected her personal realizations of wholeness. Her next step on the great medicine wheel of life would be teaching her human children how to hear and interpret the messages they receive. The roar of the sea lion resounded in her memory, reminding her that she could call on the abilities of the seals and sea lions to teach her human children the medicine of riding the waves of their emotions and feelings in order to discover all facets of themselves. Through trusting their feelings, her human children could learn the many levels of discernment necessary to hearing the truth. Listening Woman had learned many lessons during that sun of bitter cold and fiery feelings of wholeness. Then she applied the new understanding to the two men who had asked for her counsel. She had taught the two men how to see the harmony of the other's viewpoint by making them stand in the position of the others, pretending to voice the opposite viewpoint until they respected the other's opinion. Those earlier events seemed a very long time ago. During the generations that followed, Listening Woman had grown and continued to develop her skills, as if they were rare medicine objects. She quietly put away her precious memories, wrapping them in teaway, using the stillness like a medicine bundle to hold the sacred remembrance of her message. Now it was time for the Clown Mother to enter teaway and listen to the words of the young woman who was struggling to understand the dreams and messages she had received. As Grandfather Sun rode low in the Sky Nation, Listening Woman helped the young dreamer to interpret the symbols and spoken wisdom she had gathered from her visions. Listening Woman showed the younger woman how to ask herself leading questions that would enable her to find her own answers. The tools that the Clown Mother used sparked understanding, always asking the young woman to think, to remember, to feel, and to honor the still inner voice that insisted that the dreamer hear the truth inside her own heart. Listening Woman would listen to the girl and then ask, "How did that make you feel?" or "What did the creature seem to be teaching you?" In every instance when a person seeking counsel felt safe and like she or he was really being heard, the inner knowing would shine forth. Listening Woman found herself becoming a reflector for those seeking assistance, always recognizing that at some point all of her children needed to be reassured. Some were frightened of the stillness, others afraid of the darkness of the void, still others were scared of what they might hear because they had been denying the truth inside of themselves. Each member of the human tribe was an individual who had to follow the path to wholeness that suited him or her, but all the human tribe would have to discover inner knowing before these paths would reach the wholeness they sought. Hearing the voice of the Orenda was the manner in which all humans would eventually realize their potentials. Without the ability to listen to their heart's desire and inner truths, they were lost. Listening Woman taught them that the first step on every individual path was learning to listen to their bodies and to each other with respect. Later, they were taught the skills of listening to nature and how to hear and interpret the unspoken messages of the natural world and the voices of the ancestors that rode on the winds. Further along the path to wholeness, the children of Earth learned how to listen to their own spoken words, comparing what they actually said to the truth found in their Orenda's voice. This step was a weeding out process that struck at the heart of limitations and illusions found along the red road of human life. As Listening Woman reviewed the skills she had been able to pass along to the children of Earth, the fluttering of her heart caught her attention. She focused on the flutter and found the voice of her Orenda filled with love. A shudder went through the grandmother's body as the voice spoke. The children of Earth will heal their wounds and find the same joy that you have cradled in your heart. Self of myself. There is more inner peace available with each passing season because more members of the human tribe are discovering the way home. The love is returning. As that flow of life increases and the two-leggeds find the eternal flame of love inside of themselves, Hela Wean, the language of love will return. They will once again be able to hear the pureness of each other's hearts and understand the harmony of creation that the Great Spirit had given as a legacy of peace. All forms will live together as one and will support all others without judgment or expectations. Listen. Can you hear it? As the voice of her Orenda faded, Listening Woman heard the faint murmurs of the breeze, building in pitch, climbing the ridge across the sacred mountain, encircling the Earth Mother. The voices of the ancestors rode on the winds of change, whispering to all who could hear. Now is the time of the return of White Buffalo. It is time to set aside your fears and to join in the quest for wholeness and unity. Children, call to this grandmother who can teach you the harmony of your heart's inner peace. Listening Woman hears your call and stands ready to show you how to discover the way. Listen for the soft, falling footsteps of your ancestors amidst the pounding of White Buffalo's hooves, and know that every night we light the homecoming fires across the great expanse of Sky Nation. In Teoway we wait. We send you our ancient whispers to mark the harmony trail back to your heart's home. Listening Woman sat in the stillness and listened. The emerging voices that were calling her name came as no surprise. The time for humans to listen and to reach for spiritual wholeness, discarding separation and limitation, had finally arrived.